I wanted to tell everyone about my new book that I just got in the mail, the first copy of it yesterday. And that's Jamini Sutras Raw, Volume 1. So I decided to finally put my Jaimini Sutra translations into print. Jaimini Sutras Raw, Volume 1 covers the first chapter of Jaimini. The first chapter of Jaimini has 4 quarters to it. So it's the first 4 parts of Jaimini in one book. And I called it Jaimini Sutras Raw. The reason I called it Raw is because you're getting Jaimini Sutras undiluted, pure, undigested. You're actually getting a literal translation of Jaimini. All the other Jaimini books you find out there, that they claim to be translations, they're not really literal translations. They're more what the author thought Jaimini was saying, and they write that down. And so a lot of the stuff that's floating around about Jaimini is not really Jaimini. It's what people who try to read Jaimini thinks Jaimini said. In Jaimini Sutras Raw, you get exactly what Jaimini says, because every Sanskrit word is given the meaning, so it's like a little dictionary. There's a sutra, you get the Sanskrit word with its English meanings, and then you get a literal translation of the sutra. So you get to see for the first time what Jaimini is really, really saying. No one has done this other than one attempt was made in the 1950s by a professor in India. His name was, what was his name again? K.V. Abhyankar. So he did a translation in the 50s that he tried to be extremely literal with. However, a lot of the coded parts of Jaimini he missed. He didn't decode all the sutras fully and properly, so you would get a literal Sanskrit meaning but not necessarily the decoded version of Jaimini. Because as you hopefully know, and if not I'm going to tell you, Jaimini Sutras is written in a coded form of Sanskrit, where he does a couple tricks here and there to the sutras to give some words double meanings, to make fun of signs and emphasize other points, and is basically a code that he works with to write his sutras. And if we don't follow that code explicitly, we will not be able to understand what he wants us to do. And in the first section of his book, the first quarter of the first chapter, he actually tells us how to read his sutras. And I covered that section, which is really, really important, in detail with extensive commentary, so that you get the exact Jaimini Sutra, the exact Sanskrit words, the exact literal translation, and a bunch of BS, which is my commentary. So, using those things, you can actually start learning how to read and learn Jaimini Sutras yourself. Instead of just listening to what other people think that Jaimini said, you can actually read Jaimini for the first time. This is not the book to get if you want to just learn Jaimini Sutras blindly and not know what's going on. If you want that, go get my audio courses on Jaimini, where I teach you exactly how to apply every sutra in the first chapter of the book. Okay? But if you want to know what Jaimini is really saying, and you want to study Jaimini's words, but you don't know how to read Sanskrit, or you might know how to read Sanskrit, but you're frustrated with Jaimini's code, then you want to get my book. Because in my book, I break down the Sanskrit, I break down Jaimini's code, I tell you, how to follow the principles in the first chapter to understand the correct meanings of the sutras later on in his book. Okay? So that's why it's called Jaimini Sutras Raw. It's raw, it's undigested. I did put some commentary of my own in the book, especially in the first 2 chapters, and some in the Upapada chapter, because that's so controversial. But for the most part, this book is going to require a lot of study. That's how I made it. I didn't want to make this for lazy astrologers. This book is for astrologers who want to think. Or just for astrologers who want a pretty book on their shelves that looks awesome and has like really intense sutras that every once in a while look at so that I can make a little extra money. That works too. But really I designed this for people who really want to think and study Jaimini, the essence of Jaimini. Because that's what Jaimini wants us to do when it comes to his sutras. He didn't write Jaimini Sutras so that we could learn to be great predictors and predict all this stupid stuff that's going to happen anyway. Jaimini wrote Jaimini Sutras so that we would study Jaimini Sutras. Because the way Jaimini Sutras is written, we have to study so hard until we get this aha, awakening and experience. And then we understand the sutra. You know, Jaimini will tell us to do something, we're like, what? And we can't figure out what he wants us to do, even though we hear it perfectly. We're like, yeah, I understand perfectly the words, but I still don't know what you want me to do. Until we keep dwelling and contemplating the sutra, until there's an awakening and we go, aha, that's what Jaimini wants to do. And then we run and we pull some charts and we try it and it works. And Jaimini wants to create these inner awakenings of knowledge and understanding within us. And that's why he wrote the sutras in such a difficult way. Unfortunately, most people haven't been diligent enough to dredge the truth out of Jaimini because they're too much in a rush to get, I want to predict the stupid future, which is going to happen anyway, so what's the point of predicting it? I know I'm making fun about that, but I'm doing that because I think Jaimini would be making fun of our need to predict the future too. You know, Jaimini wants us to, he's a true teacher who wants us to experience inner awakening of knowledge. And by practicing Jaimini Sutras and having these inner awakenings of knowledge, we realize that all knowledge was within ourselves. All other astrology teachers, what do? They say, oh, this is what you do, this is what you do, this is what you do. Remember this, quote this, parrot on this. And we remember those things, some of them, other ones we forget. The truth is, we only remember and connect with the words of the person telling us the things that we're ready, that are awakening within us, the knowledge that's awakening within us. Otherwise, we don't get it. That's why somebody can teach a class to 100 people, and 100 people, they'll all get something else out of the class in accordance with their own inner awakening of knowledge. But all 100 of those people who got something out of that class will go, my gosh, that was a great class. That person taught me so much. But that's not what happened. They had the inner awakening while the teacher was talking. And then the students blamed their inner awakening on the teacher. Well, I like to blame things on students. I think Jaimini liked to blame things on students too. Meaning he wants us to realize the knowledge is coming from within. And a real teacher just puts us into a thinking situation where instead of looking outside for the knowledge, we only can look inside for the knowledge, and then we watch it bloom forth. And we'll go, oh my God, I'm full of this profound knowledge and wisdom and joy. Instead of, I need this person to tell me this, and please do this for me, and please read my chart, and please teach me. Jaimini's not into that. He's like, I will confound you with my sutras. And when all your hairs are pulled out, you'll have a moment of revelation. And in that moment of revelation, you'll become an amazing, wonderful, wise person. And that's the way Jaimini teaches. And so I thought it would be nice if there was a book out there that allowed the English-speaking person who didn't understand Sanskrit a chance to embrace Jaimini the way Jaimini wants us to, which is a process of study and contemplation that yields wisdom and knowledge and techniques of how to predict with astrology. Instead of just making us parrots of a teacher, he wants us to cultivate this inner knowledge. So I've tried to write, there's a big chapter in the beginning where I kind of explain a lot about how Jaimini works with the sutras, so that I hope to start you on that path of how Jaimini wants us to learn from his sutras and teach us about the profound wisdom that we all have within us if we simply contemplate it. And his sutras force us to contemplate that. You know, his sutras don't just say, do it this way in simple Sanskrit or simple English that just makes sense and you do it and have success. His sutras are designed to confound us and make connections and connect the things we understand with other things we understand to achieve an understanding of what he wants us to understand. And we do all that within our own consciousness. And Jaimini just pushes our buttons. And pushing buttons is not a lot of fun. So regretfully, most people, instead of going through the process of truly studying Jaimini, what they've done is they've just copied down what old commentators have said about Jaimini. Like, what did Nilakanta say about Jaimini? Oh, I'll just write that down as my translation to Jaimini. Or what does it say in Brihat Parashara that's similar? I'll just write that down in my translation of Jaimini. And so in most translations, what you're getting is just stuff that's not even correct from other Jaimini commentators. The stuff in the Jaimini related stuff that's in Brihat Parashara is not Jaimini's words. It's not Parashara's words. It's simply a bad Jaimini commentary that's incomplete, incorrect on some points, and on the simple sutras that are just descriptive, that Jaimini doesn't even have any special meaning attached to, they're right on those sutras at least. But all the key sutras that tell us how to do something, Parashara is all wrong. Because it's not from Parashara. Those chapters were probably added accidentally when Brihat Parashara was recompiled in the late 1800s. We don't know what was in the original Parashara. But the very fact that the Jaimini stuff in Parashara conflicts with the truth of Jaimini when you really understand Jaimini, and the fact that it doesn't work well in practice either, shows us it cannot be from Parashara truly, and it cannot be from Jaimini truly. So, like I said, if you want a book to study Jaimini, and you want to truly study Jaimini, instead of just learn what other people think about Jaimini, this book is for you. Now, you also probably just want to learn Jaimini Astrology too. Well, I have 3 audio courses that cover the material in this book. Okay, and those audio courses are basically, this is the course manual cleaned up from those audio courses. So in the audio courses, you basically get this with me talking for hours and hours and showing you how to use Jaimini techniques on charts. And so that's more if you just want to get the astrology out of it. But again, I would hope you would just skip that step and focus on the book and suffer for years and years sorting out these sutras and having these deep inner realizations if you're that type of student astrologer. If you're an astrologer that just wants to be able to manage your clients better and make more predictions in a less stressful way and be more accurate in reading a person's life, you can start with this, but if you don't have the patience to study all these sutras, then you can get my course or whatever. But in either case, if you are studying Jaimini, no matter who you're studying from, no matter what you're learning on the internet, wouldn't it be nice if you had Jaimini's exact words to compare to what somebody's telling you that Jaimini said? Because if you listen to what they're telling you, and then you read what Jaimini actually says, you can even make more connections and go above and beyond what that other person is simply telling you what they think. Because then you can listen to what they think, read the true sutra, think what you think, and now you've got what you think and they think, and you put that together and you have more than if you just listen to what they think, right? So I hope, however you use this book, that expands your knowledge of astrology, and mostly that expands the understanding of your own potential, your own potential for knowledge. That all it takes is contemplation. And Jaimini's a master at forcing us to contemplate things. He makes us want something so bad. He makes us want to learn how to predict something so bad. It's like a carrot at the end of a stick. That we are willing to contemplate and think deeply and try things until, aha, it works. And we realize an astronomical or astrological truth. Okay? Alright, so you can get this book. Usually I print all my books and I have them shipped to me in a semi-truck, and then I have stacks of books invading my privacy. This time I decided to try Lulu.com, where basically when you order it, Lulu prints it and mails it to you. Alright? Capiel from KRS, I was talking to him and he said he uses Lulu.com and it works really well. And so I figured, since I was sort of short on space, I would try Lulu.com rather than storing boxes of books around here. So you can go to Lulu.com and just search for my book, Jamini Sutras Raw. This is volume 1. And buy it there. Or you can go to Vedic-astrology.net and go to the books menu and find it there and click on that, and that'll take you to Lulu where you can buy it. Lulu ships all over the world, so whatever country you're in, you should be able to get it shipped. It shouldn't be very expensive because it's only 158 pages. It's a thin book. It doesn't even weigh half a pound. So hopefully it'll ship to Europe and India and other countries affordably. And that's Volume 1. Volume 2, those of you who want to know about Volume 2, raise your hand, right? Volume 2 will be really cool because Volume 2 will be the second chapter of Jaimini. And in the second chapter he deals with 3/4 of that are about longevity. And the 4th quarter of that is all about the dashas, the Rashi dashas for timing events. That book will probably be out in a few years, actually. It won't be out anytime soon. However, I will later this summer of 2014 here be teaching a Jaimini class on all the Jaimini dashas in my on my astrology-videos website. Okay, so I will be teaching all that, but it'll probably be a while before I get the book done. And the reason being because the 3 chapters on longevity, I want to work with those more before I put them into a book. But the chapter on the dashas that are for predicting events, you'll be getting all the sutras to those chapters and some of the sutras from the longevity chapters in the upcoming Jaimini course that I will be teaching. Okay, so the second part of Jaimini will be available soon, just not as a published little book. I consider the first part of Jaimini the most important, the first chapter, which is what this book covers. In that chapter, Jaimini teaches us to find out who a person is, what their skills are, what type of intelligence they have, if they're going to be a great person, a successful person, how many children they'll have, if they'll be married. It shows all the bread and butter things of our life, what we're going to have, who we are, the fulfillment possible in our spiritual life even, whether we'll be wealthy or not. All those things are covered better by Jaimini in this first chapter, which is this first volume, than in any other astrological textbook. And Jaimini is a must-know if you want to deal with really concrete questions of a person coming in and saying, am I going to be famous? Am I going to be wealthy? Am I going to get married? Yes or no? For any of those yes or no things, Jaimini has the answer. And Jaimini also gets very specific in determining what type of career you're going to have. What are you going to do in your life? What are your skills in your life like? Do you have the skill to be an astrologer? Do you have the skill to be a businessman, computer programmer? What are you going to do? Jaimini teaches all that stuff. And all that stuff's covered in this book and my first 3 Jaimini courses as well. Okay? So Jaimini's great, but I consider this the most important book. You can time the events of this with Vimshatri Dasha. You don't need the Rashi Dashas to time it. But Rashi Dashas are great for timing all events. So that's a nice thing to learn. But you can time astrology with lots of different methods. The things that Jaimini teaches us how to find out about ourselves in this first chapter, there's no other astrology book that teaches how to do it very well, if at all. So this is the part of Jaimini you can't live without these techniques. You just cannot be a good astrologer, in my opinion, without these techniques. You can be a great astrologer without knowing how to use Rashi Dashas and just use other systems of timing. But you can't be a great astrologer if you can't predict a career, if you can't confidently say you're going to be famous, if you can't predict an election, all that stuff, boom, Jaimini tells us how to do it perfectly. Okay, enough said. I hope you enjoy the book. If you get it, let me know how it is. If you're happy with the quality, I can always go back to printing it at a press and having boxes dropped off at my house and shipping them to you. But I thought I would give lulu.com a try and see if they do a good enough job to please everybody. But if I hear any negative feedback, I will go back to my self-publishing thing. But I think they're going to do good because I've heard good stuff. And I'm pretty happy with this little book they sent me. It was pretty decent. I mean, for a paperback, it's totally good quality. Okay, thank you.